Time passed, and Sarah gave birth to her third child, a boy she named Thomas. Calm and composed, she convinced Dawn to take the newborn upstairs, explaining that the basement was too crowded and that she couldn't care for another baby alone. Dawn agreed and left the infant on the porch, where Irene later found him. Inside the basket there was a heartfelt note, seemingly written by Sarah. In it, she explained that the baby was hers, but that she and her boyfriend were unable to raise him properly. She pleaded with Irene to care for the child and give him a better life. Inside the basket, along with the baby, Sarah had hidden another note, a desperate plea for help. Unfortunately, Don was the one who found it. Enraged, he returned to the basement and assaulted her again. As the years passed, the children, raised in captivity, developed vivid imaginations. They expanded upon the fairy tale their mother had once told them, turning it into a world of wonder and escape. By this time, Sarah had been trapped in the basement for 14 years. Marie, now a graceful and blossoming young girl, experimented with makeup one night. Dawn noticed her transformation and showed an unsettling interest in her appearance. Horrified, Sarah pleaded with him to leave her daughter alone. In retaliation, Dawn cut the power, shutting off the ventilation and clean air supply. As she struggled to breathe, Marie shared her fears of never having friends or meeting anyone outside their confined world. During their emotional exchange, it became clear that Marie was unaware of a terrible truth. Dawn was both her father and her grandfather. Upstairs, a now-grown Thomas found Irene crying alone in Sarah's former bedroom. Irene, still grieving the loss of her daughter, opened up to Thomas about how extraordinary Sarah was and how much she missed her. Back in the basement, a storm had begun, and raindrops started leaking through the ceiling. Investigating the moisture, Sarah climbed up and found a soggy patch on the roof. Armed with nothing but a spoon, she began to dig her way out. Once she reached the surface, she signaled for help. A neighbor spotted the distress signal, but instead of investigating, they informed Dawn. Furious, Dawn returned and beat Sarah again, unaware that she was pregnant. The abuse caused her to lose the baby. Sarah sobbed as she endured the pain of a stillbirth, while Dawn coldly buried the child in the yard. Later, Dawn visited the basement and voiced his complaints. At the same time, he praised Thomas, who had grown into a strong and athletic young man. When Marie and Michael asked when they would finally be allowed to go outside, Don shifted the blame onto Sarah. He claimed her poor behavior was the reason they were still trapped underground. Overwhelmed by her children's questions and desperate for answers, Sarah snapped. In a fit of frustration, she tore apart their meager furniture, screaming as years of pain and silence boiled over. Exhausted, she collapsed, her mind drifting back to her happiest memories, moments shared with Chris. Seeing their mother broken, the children gently covered her with a blanket and began tidying up the space. They apologized to her softly. Emotionally moved, Sarah looked at them and decided it was time. They were old enough now to learn the truth. Until then, all they had believed was that Dawn lived upstairs with their Aunt Irene, supposedly helping raise Thomas. Tired of the lies, Sarah finally revealed everything. She began by explaining that the bedtime story they loved so much wasn't a fantasy, it was her life. With a gentle tone, Sarah reveals the devastating truth. Don is not only her father but also the father of her children. Upon hearing this, Marie suffers a severe asthma attack, overwhelmed by the painful reality. The children begin to question themselves, wondering if something is inherently wrong with them. But Sarah comforts them, assuring them of her unconditional love and making it clear that Dawn is solely to blame for their situation. A year later, tensions rise again when Dawn belittles Sarah and mocks her appearance. Michael, unable to tolerate the insult, confronts him. Around the same time, Dawn begins to face financial difficulties. He starts cutting back on the food he brings to the basement as he struggles at work. Eventually, he loses his job and the house is threatened with foreclosure. In a desperate and horrific act, Dawn attempts to kill Sarah and the children by connecting the car's exhaust system to the basement's ventilation, hoping to fill it with toxic fumes. Fortunately, Thomas walks into the garage just in time, unknowingly stopping the deadly plan and saving their lives. Later, while Don and his upstairs family enjoy a cheerful barbecue in the backyard, Marie is in the basement, gravely ill and struggling to breathe. Sarah pleads with Don to take her to the hospital. She swears she won't expose the truth if he just helps her daughter. Reluctantly, Don agrees but leaves Michael behind in the basement. 20 years have passed since Sarah was first imprisoned, bringing us to the present-day opening of the story. Marie is rushed into the emergency room, and Sarah is frantic with worry. She can only breathe freely again when the doctors manage to stabilize Marie's condition. When a nurse requests more medical information, Sarah hesitates and explains that Marie has always been homeschooled and treated only with natural remedies. While they're at the hospital, Sarah scans the building, clearly exhausted and uncertain, searching for a way to escape. Seizing a moment, she deliberately spills water on some of the hospital paperwork and quietly distances herself from Don. Just as he approaches her again, Sarah reaches a nurse and bravely confides that she needs help. Authorities are immediately alerted. A police officer confronts Don and arrests him on the spot. Sarah returns to Marie's bedside, whispering the news that they are finally safe and free. Meanwhile, police officers raid the house and discover Michael in the basement, rescuing him at last. When Irene and Thomas witness the scene, Michael wheezing for breath as he's carried out into the fresh air, they are heartbroken and horrified by what has been hidden beneath their home for so long. From the back seat of the police car, Don watches silently as everything slips out of his control. Later, on a warm summer afternoon, Marie, Thomas, and Michael run and laugh as they play freely in the open countryside. Nearby, Sarah, Irene, and Amy sit peacefully on the porch, keeping an eye on the children while soaking in the serenity. Suddenly, Marie spots someone approaching from the driveway. It's Chris, arriving on his motorcycle. He greets Sarah warmly, and the two set off on a quiet walk together. With emotion in his voice, Chris apologizes for not doing more to find her and for trusting the lies her father told. He presents her with a special gift, a pink motorcycle helmet he had bought for her years ago, back when they had planned to travel the country together. Smiling through tears, Sarah accepts it. At last reunited and finally free, they ride off side by side on the motorcycle, starting the journey they had once only dreamed of.